sister moon, I seldom see you, seldom hear your tune, preoccupied with selfish misery.
Greetings, Uncle Travelling Matt here, reporting on my 5th day of walking on my 2nd stage of my Camino of St. Francis of Assisi. I'm not on the Camino now, I'm back home, but I forgot to record this day, and, well, you'll understand why when I explain what I did. So, woke up in my wonderful big house in the hamlet of Mocaiana, and set off quite early, or 8:30, on my way to the city of Gubbio. And as I walked through the little village that's next to the hamlet, it was really good because there's a pizzeria there. And when the guy saw me walking past, he called out to me and he said, "Oh, you're a pilgrim? Have a free coffee." So I started off the day with a free coffee, which I just thought was really kind. And I walked 2.5 kilometres to the cafe where the bus had dropped me off the day before. So that walk I'd already done the day before. And I stopped off at that cafe, had my breakfast there, and then continued on to Gubbio. It was all dead flat, so very easy walking, but for some reason I struggled to get into my rhythm. I don't know, some days you walk and it just happens, and other days it just doesn't click, and this day it just wasn't clicking. It was hot. It was another really hot day, and I don't know if that helped, but yeah, easy going, but it just wasn't really happening for me. And I was actually really tired, and I kind of slumped into the city of Gubbio. I mean, the plan was to go somewhere nice in the old centre and have a drink, but literally on the outskirts, I saw a kind of cake shop come cafe, and I just went straight for that, and it was wonderful. It was full of like young mums with babies and stuff, and that's where they hang out on the edge of town. And interestingly, one of them, so not the night before, but the night before that, in Pieve di Sadi, in the church, the 4th century church that I mentioned, there were some frescoes. So I think the whole church had been frescoed at one time, but most of them had, eroded away over the years. But there was one particular fresco of the Virgin, and it really spoke to me. It was one of the most beautiful renderings of the Virgin I've ever come across. I don't know, sometimes these things click with you and sometimes they don't, and that one did. And she had a very particular look to her. And one of the women in this cafe just looked like the Virgin in this fresco, and I thought, I wonder if, centuries ago, the original was based on an ancestor of hers, because it's very possible. I mean, it's probably even likely, considering where we were. But yeah, there we are. So I met the Virgin in a cake shop in Gubbio, and fueled, I continued on. Now, Gubbio is a bit of a tourist spot. It's got a magnificent Roman theatre or amphitheatre on the edge of town, which I did see, but I didn't go in because I've seen those things before. I saw several in Algeria earlier in the year. And the amount of tourists in the centre was a bit of a shock for me. Also, it wasn't in its best lights because they were repaving parts of it, but got to the Tourist Information Centre and had a chat with them. And I was very worried about the way ahead because there was a hell of a long way to go, and it was hot, and my ankle was hurting. I just wasn't in the mood. And so, sorry, Lord, I cheated again. I said, "Look, can I order a taxi?" And they said, "Well, it's quite expensive, but taxis are very expensive Italy, by the way, horrendously so. But so what I did is I ordered a taxi for 4 o'clock that afternoon in a place called Pont de Cis, which is a few miles on from Gubbio. And what that did is it meant that, I would be walking a considerable distance, but not the entire thing. But it also gave me a bit of time to see something of Gubbio, although I was so tired I couldn't really appreciate it. So after the tourist information centre, they were really good and helpful. I wandered up through the old town, very pretty, very pretty. I can see where the tourists come, although, like every town around there is pretty. And what was cool is it's all on a big steep hill, as Umbrian towns seem to be. But there were lifts so you didn't have to climb up the hill, so that was quite cool. So I took a lift up to the main square where the famous town hall is, and then wandered along towards a funicular. And this funicular was really quite something. I think it was built in the fascist time. I don't think they would allow them now. And it was, I thought it would be like a cable car, a chairlift. And it was, except rather than chairs, there were little cages, and you stood up in this cage, and it was for one or two people at most. And you go up the mountainside, standing up in your little cage thing, or not even a cage, more like a basket. But you go, it's really quite funky, and so I went up. And they said, well, it closes at 1 or half past. So, like, I didn't have a lot of time at the top, but I went up this mountain behind the town, and there are some churches and monasteries up there, which I would have loved to have time to explore, but I didn't. And so I just went up, enjoyed the views, took some photos at the top, and then went back down again. And I saw from above the Franciscan church, which is on the site of where Francis met the wolf. So apparently there was this wolf terrorizing Gubbio, and like attacking people and stuff like that. And so he went out and spoke to the wolf, and the wolf listened to him, and then he had a deal with the wolf, whereas if they fed the wolf, he would never terrorize the city again, and the wolf was tamed. And when he died, the legend is they buried him in this where this church is. And apparently a few years ago they were doing some archaeological digging, and there was the skeleton of a wolf there from that time, so who knows. But yeah, so Gubbio and the wolf, Francis and the Wolf of Gubbio it's a famous story. So anyway, went back down the funicular and back down the lift, and had my dinner in the old town, very pleasant, and walked on. And the road that I walked along, it was straight as a die, and flat as well. It was a street dritta, I think it was called, and it must have been a Roman road. I mean, it actually felt as a walker as if I was walking along a disused railway line, because they're called, of course, normally flat and straight. But no, I don't think it was a railway line. I think it was a Roman road, because it actually went from one of the old Roman gateways into the city. And I walked along that for a few miles. Really not very exciting, but it was pleasant. On the edge of town, I needed to buy some new underwear, so because I hadn't bought as much as I thought I had. So there was a shop, so I managed to buy a load of underwear. But when I got it later, I found it was way too small, so that was a bit of a stupid move. But it looked big enough when I was buying it. Never mind. Yeah, so I walked along, and I stopped once by an old leper hospital. On this road, but then carried on to this place called Pont de Cis, and there was a bar, and I got there probably about 3:30, so I went in, had a drink in the bar, read a bit, and waited for the taxi. The taxi didn't speak any English, but he was a friendly guy, and he took me up the mountain. And I'll be honest, yeah, it would have been a real struggle going up there. Could I have done it? Maybe. But let's remember, it was already almost 4 o'clock by the time I got to the cafe, so it would have been like 9 by the time I got there, I think. But he took me to the Eremo di San Pietro in Vigneto, right? Now, Eremo is like a hermitage. and they're these like isolated religious compounds. And this place was wow, and it's a Donativo albergue. And when I got there was a Franciscan friar outside, so I thought there was a community of friars there. It turns out it wasn't. He was one of the pilgrims that was just staying there. But it was an incredible place, and if Pieve di Sardi was like heaven on earth, this place competed for it. Built around a courtyard and run by a guy called Luigi. And there was a wonderful community of pilgrims in there. Some Canadians. There was a Slovakian called Norbert and a Singaporean called Max. Um, and a German lady called Katja. And it was just a really nice community. And before the evening meal, which was prepared communally, we went into the church, which was really nice. It was quite simple but beautiful. And Luigi told us about his story, about how he'd been married, got 4 kids, and then his wife had left him. She divorced him, and he didn't know what to do. So he'd gone on a Camino to decide, and he decided he would live as if he was married. And he said to his kids, "This is always your home. I am still your family. Your mum may have left, but I am not leaving." And he said it was very much appreciated by them. And he was a wonderful man, and he did this foot washing ceremony. And then we had this fantastic meal together. It was the tastiest meal I've had for a while, and it was just glorious. It was just pilgrim togetherness, community. It was wonderful. One thing I was worried about when I'd come to get a bed, obviously being one of the later ones to arrive, all the lower bunks were taken, and I really struggled to get up to the upper bunks. But also, I go up and down a lot in the night because of sleep apnea. I go to the toilet a lot. And I did mention this to him, and he actually found me another bed, by a toilet in a room on my own, which probably was good for other people because with my snoring, it's probably not cool. But yeah, so what a wonderful man. And actually, after the meal in the evening, Luigi and I had a chat about marriage and about because my ex is getting remarried, and I'm worried about how that affected kids and stuff like that. And we just had a very good chat, and he was a bit of a spiritual advisor, and it was wonderful. And that's why I did make a video, because it was so fantastic. There was no time to think of things like videos, and I ended the night in the courtyard. I did a little candle ritual, although I was too tired to really get much out of it. And just looking up at this canopy of stars above this ancient building, and there we were in the middle of God's creation, and all was good in the world. So there we are. It's me, Uncle Travelling Matt, saying keep travelling and stay on the path.
Brother sun and sister moon, I now do see you, I can hear your tune. So